These cookies are for you. I spun around sharply. My hand gripped the screwdriver as I'd been adjusting the ceiling fixture when a small voice stopped me cold. Below stood a little girl, her eyes sparkling with excitement, holding a plastic container filled with homemade cookies. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old, her pigtails bouncing as she looked up at me with pure enthusiasm. I climbed down the ladder carefully, surrounded by the dust and paint cans scattered across this renovation site. The scene felt surreal in this industrial chaos. "Cookies for me?" I asked, unable to hide the surprise in my voice. "Yes. Papa helped a little, but I did most of the work," she announced proudly, clutching the container with her tiny fingers. "I'm Lily. What's your name?" "I'm Benny," I said, smiling awkwardly as I glanced at my dust-covered hands, stained with paint and plaster. "Where's your father? Did he let you come here alone?" As if on cue, the conference room door swung open. He emerged from inside, tall, broad-shouldered, with a sharp jawline and a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that looked completely out of place amid the construction chaos. His dark eyes immediately assessed me with professional precision before softening as they landed on Lily. "Lily, I specifically told you not to disturb the workers." His voice carried authority, deep and commanding, yet there was a gentler edge when addressing his daughter. "These people are trying to work, princess." "But Papa, you said this morning that sharing is caring," Lily protested, gripping the container even tighter as if afraid he might take it away. He approached, and suddenly I became acutely aware of my dusty work clothes and disheveled hair. This man was clearly the building's owner, the CEO whose company had hired us for this renovation. I'd heard about him but had never met him face to face until now. "I'm Alton," he introduced himself, extending his hand despite my obviously dirty palms. "Alton Hayes. I apologize for the interruption. I hope she hasn't pulled you away from anything critical." I shook his hand, slightly hesitant. His grip was firm and professional, and for one brief second his eyes met mine, direct and intense. My heart skipped an unexpected beat that I immediately tried to dismiss. This was just surprise, I convinced myself. "No problem, Mr. Hayes," I replied, attempting to sound both professional and casual. "Your daughter is incredibly sweet. Honestly, getting cookies on a construction site is pretty rare." Lily immediately pushed the container into my hands, making absolutely certain I was accepting them. "You have to try one right now. Papa says I'm the best baker in the whole world." A small genuine smile crossed Alton's lips, tender and warm, and I noticed how the corners of his eyes crinkled slightly. "She insisted on bringing them today. We come here daily to check on the progress, and she noticed all the workers. That's when she got this idea." I opened the container and took out a cookie. As I bit into it, Lily watched with expectant eyes, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. This is really delicious," I said honestly, and it truly was. The slightly burnt edges gave it a homemade charm, but the flavor was perfect, buttery, sweet, with properly melted chocolate chips. "See, Papa? I told you everyone would love them." Lily jumped excitedly and grabbed onto Alton's leg. "Can we make more tomorrow?" Alton placed his hand on his daughter's head, tender and protective. "Yes, princess, you were absolutely right, but now we should let Benny get back to work. Okay? He's very busy." "Okay," Lily agreed, then looked back at me. "I'll come again tomorrow. I'll bring even more cookies." As they began to leave, Lily turned around and waved enthusiastically. I stood there holding the cookie container, watching as Alton took Lily's hand, gentle yet secure, and led her out of the site, one hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Something stirred in my chest, warm, uncomfortable, unfamiliar. I immediately headed back toward my ladder and tried to resume working. This was just a random encounter, I reminded myself. Nothing more. There was nothing special about it. But when I returned home that night to my small apartment where I lived alone, Alton's smile kept replaying in my mind, and that warmth I'd witnessed when he looked at his daughter. I reminded myself while preparing a simple dinner. He's a CEO. I'm just an electrician doing contract work. Yet the next morning, when I arrived at the site slightly early, wanting to finish yesterday's incomplete work, Lily was there again. She had a fresh batch of cookies, strawberry flavored this time, and this time Alton lingered. Longer than before. He watched me work, and when I glanced in his direction, he quickly looked away toward the blueprints as if he didn't want to be caught staring. Something was beginning. I didn't know exactly what, but I could feel it. The weight of his gaze followed me throughout that morning. Every time I climbed the ladder, adjusted a fixture, or checked the wiring, I sensed his presence somewhere in the background. It wasn't uncomfortable exactly, more like an awareness that prickled along my spine. During my mid-morning break, I found myself wondering about him, about Lily, about what their life looked like outside these construction walls. The thought surprised me. I didn't usually get personally curious about clients. "Careful up there," one of my coworkers shouted as I balanced on the top rung, reaching for a particularly stubborn wire connection. "I've got it," I called back, finally securing the connection. As I descended, I caught Alton watching again from across the floor. This time he didn't look away immediately. Instead, he offered a small nod of acknowledgement before returning to his conversation with the site manager. My pulse quickened inexplicably. By lunch, Lily had convinced her father to let her set up a small picnic blanket in the corner, away from any construction hazards, where she drew pictures with crayons she'd brought from home. Alton sat nearby on a folding chair, laptop open, but his attention clearly divided between his work and his daughter. "Benny," Lily called out suddenly, "do you want to see what I'm drawing?" I hesitated, glancing at my supervisor, who merely shrugged. "Take your break," he muttered. I walked over, crouching down beside Lily's makeshift art station. She'd drawn a construction site with stick figures, workers with tool belts, a tall man in a suit, and a small girl holding what appeared to be a plate of cookies. "That's you," she pointed to one of the workers. "And that's Papa, and that's me with my cookies. Do you like it?" "I think it's wonderful," I said sincerely. Alton looked up from his laptop, and our eyes met over Lily's head. Something unspoken passed between us, a connection I couldn't name but definitely felt. "Thank you for being patient with her," Alton said quietly. "It's not patience," I replied. "It's genuine." His expression softened further, and for a moment the construction noise faded into background static. Something was definitely beginning. "Benny! Benny! Today I made double chocolate chip cookies." Lily's voice distracted me from the ladder, where I was carefully inspecting wiring that the previous contractor had incorrectly installed. This was the third day, and it had become our routine. Every morning around 9, Lily arrived with cookies, and I'd pause my work to talk with her. I didn't want to admit it, but I'd started looking forward to this daily ritual. "Lily, how many times must I remind you?" Alton's voice carried a stern edge as he rounded the corner, laptop bag slung over his shoulder and phone in hand, clearly fresh from an important call. But when he saw me smiling and not shooing Lily away, his expression softened. "I apologize, Benny, she's becoming somewhat overly persistent. If this is problematic, It's actually completely fine," I said, climbing down and removing my work gloves. Truthfully, it's become the highlight of my morning. Before this, everything was just construction noise and dust clouds. Alton's expression shifted from surprise to something else, something unreadable and soft. "You seem naturally good with children. It shows." "I have a younger sister," I explained, accepting the cookie container. "Maya. I used to babysit her extensively when I was a teenager, and both my parents worked long hours. So this feels familiar." Lily immediately bounced toward me, barely containing her excitement. "Does your sister also bake cookies? Could I meet her? Does she ever visit you here?" "Lily," Alton warned, embarrassment evident in his tone. "Too many questions, princess. Benny probably has other tasks waiting." "I'm actually free right now," I said, which was a half-truth. My supervisor probably expected me to complete the wiring section, but a few minutes wouldn't matter significantly. And honestly, I'd like to. In this cold, under-construction building, Lily's energy is refreshing. Alton met my eyes, and I saw something grateful and vulnerable in his expression that caught me off guard. "Thank you. She's been quite clingy around strangers these past few months. So this is actually a positive sign." Lily led me to a corner where she'd spread out her coloring books and crayons on a makeshift table constructed from construction materials. I sat beside her on an uncomfortable metal stool, but I didn't care as she excitedly explained her drawings. Flowers with smiling faces, houses with crooked chimneys and a detailed family portrait featuring a tall man in a dark suit, a small girl in a pink dress, and a fluffy dog. This is Papa heading to his office, she pointed carefully. This is me in my school uniform. And this is Mochi, but she's not with me anymore. Mochi? I asked softly, sensing something heavy behind those words. She passed away last year, Lily said quietly, her voice suddenly serious. Papa says she's in heaven now with Mama. They're together now, taking care of each other. A sharp pang hit my chest.
Oh,
I hadn't expected this. I'm certain Mochi misses you terribly, Lily, and she'd be proud seeing your drawings. Lily smiled, sad but hopeful, mature beyond her years. Mama's there too. Papa says they both watch over me when I bake cookies. That's why I always try my absolute best. I froze, suddenly aware this conversation had ventured into territory I wasn't equipped to handle as merely a worker. Alton appeared beside us, having clearly overheard everything, his expression mixing guilt and pain. Lily, sweetheart. Let's go. Benny needs to work, and we have an office meeting scheduled. All right, Papa. Lily obediently agreed, packing up her belongings. I'm sorry, I said quietly while Lily organized her crayons. I wasn't aware. If I said anything inappropriate. Alton shook his head, offering a tired smile. Please don't apologize. She discusses it openly now, which is actually healthy progress. Therapy helped tremendously this past year. Initially, she completely shut down emotionally. This openness represents real healing. We stood there for a moment in awkward silence, heavy with unspoken emotions. I noticed the tension in Alton's shoulders, as if he constantly carried some invisible weight he never set down. She's fortunate, I said, meaning every word, having you as her father. Many people in similar situations can't cope effectively. But you're both managing remarkably well. Alton's eyes met mine, surprised, vulnerable, as if he hadn't expected this compliment. Sometimes I question whether I'm sufficient for her. You understand? Being a single parent is terrifying. Every decision makes me wonder if I'm choosing correctly, what Sarah would have done differently. My heart twisted strangely. You are sufficient. Look at her. She's happy, expressive, creative. That's entirely because of you. Our eyes held for a second longer than necessary. Something shifted in the room. Something subtle yet undeniable. Benny. My supervisor's voice shattered the moment, sharp and impatient. Finish that second-floor wiring. We're on a strict timeline. Right. Apologies, I said, stepping back awkwardly. I should return to... Yes, of course. Alton also stepped back, his professional mask sliding back into place. When I returned to work, I could feel Alton's presence. Watching. Observing. During my lunch break, I snuck a glance and found him still occasionally looking my direction, while working on his phone. His eyes held something I hadn't seen before. Curiosity. Interest. Something deeper. I'd be lying to myself if I claimed I wasn't feeling the same thing. But this was dangerous territory. I warned myself. Technically, he was my client. And I was only here for a few weeks to complete the contract. Still, when Lily brought afternoon snacks, juice boxes, and cookies this time, and Alton joined us with a cup of coffee instead of immediately leaving, I couldn't stop myself. We began talking naturally, small, seemingly meaningless conversations: upcoming weather, construction progress, Lily's new art project at school. But every word felt heavier than it should. Charged. When Alton accidentally brushed my hand while passing the cookie container, we both pulled back quickly as if shocked. But that touch, it lingered on my skin for minutes afterward, burning gently. At the end of the day, while I was packing my tools, Alton approached. Benny, could I have a minute? Sure. I want you to know, I genuinely appreciate what you're doing for Lily. Making her feel normal. It matters significantly. It's truly no trouble, I said. Nevertheless, thank you. And in that simple thank you, something unspoken existed that we both felt, but couldn't yet acknowledge. Yet, my phone buzzed at 11:47 at night, the screen suddenly illuminating my dark bedroom. An unknown number blinked on the display. Who would call this late? I answered hesitantly. Hello, Benny? Alton's voice came through, strained, exhausted, slightly breathless. I'm terribly sorry for calling at this hour. I obtained your number from the site manager. I don't, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I sat up immediately in bed, suddenly alert. My heart began racing. What happened? Is everything all right? Is Lily okay? Lily's sick. High fever, 103 degrees. I'm at the hospital in the emergency room and, he paused and I could hear his shaky breathing. I don't know why I'm calling you. You shouldn't have to deal with my personal issues. I needed to talk to someone who makes me feel like something tightened painfully in my chest. Alton, slow down. What did the doctors say? Is it serious? No. Nothing life-threatening. The doctors say she'll recover. Just a viral fever that hit at a bad time because her immunity was low this month. They're administering IV fluids and fever reducers, but seeing her in that hospital bed, so small and helpless, he took a heavy breath that almost sounded like a sob. It reminded me of when she was hospitalized that last time. Silence. Heavy, painful silence stretched between us. Alton, do you need someone there physically? I can come to the hospital. My apartment isn't far from there. No. No. You need your sleep. You have work tomorrow. I just wanted to hear your voice. He paused. Benny, I'm being weird, aren't I? You barely know me. We're essentially strangers, and here I am calling you at midnight. You're not being weird, I said softly, meaning every word. You're scared. You're worried. That's completely normal when your child is hospitalized. And I'm glad you called me. Honestly, Lily talks about you constantly. Alton confessed, his voice gradually becoming calmer. Every night at dinner. Benny showed me this today. Benny said that today. I was jealous initially. It sounds foolish now. Jealous? Why? Because she connected with you so effortlessly. In just 3 days. When her mother died, she completely withdrew emotionally. Counseling took 6 months just to get her talking normally again. But with you, she's carefree. Normal. Like she used to be. My throat tightened. Alton, this isn't about jealousy. It actually demonstrates that you helped her heal. Through therapy, patience and love. I simply entered the picture when she was ready to open up again. Perhaps. He remained silent for several seconds. Benny, I need to ask you something. And please be honest. My heartbeat suddenly became very loud. All right. Have you noticed what I've been noticing these past few days? His voice lowered, becoming intimate. When we talk. When we're in the same room. This tension. This pull between us. I couldn't speak for a solid 5 seconds. Because it was true. I had noticed. But I hadn't wanted to acknowledge it. Benny? I don't know what you mean exactly. I finally said, though it was a weak deflection. Yes, you do, he whispered. Confidence growing. When I accidentally touched your hand today, you felt it too. When I watch you work, when you interact with Lily, I can't stop noticing you, Benny. My breath caught. This was becoming real. This was actually happening. Alton, I apologize, I said quickly. This is inappropriate. Technically, I'm working for you. No, wait. You're hiring my company, and there's Lily to consider. I'm making you uncomfortable in a situation that's already complicated. You're not making me uncomfortable, I interrupted, finally being honest. You're confusing me. Confusing you, 'cause I'm feeling the same thing, I admitted, words tumbling out rapidly, and I don't understand what it means or what I'm supposed to do about it. You're a CEO. I'm an electrician. You have a daughter who's recently healed from trauma. This is complicated beyond anything I've ever... I understand it's complicated, Alton gently interrupted. But Benny, could we talk properly tomorrow? When Lily's recovered and I'm thinking more clearly? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. For listening. For being yourself. Good night, Alton. Good night, Benny. When the call disconnected, I stared at my phone screen, heart still racing. I eventually lay back down, but sleep eluded me for hours. This was complicated. Messy. Wrong timing in every conceivable way. But when I arrived at the site the next morning and saw Alton's tired eyes with dark circles underneath, disheveled hair that was usually perfectly styled, coffee cup clutched in his hand, yet still attentively caring for Lily, who looked weak but was smiling. My heart made a decision. Timing is never perfect in real life. But feelings, they don't wait for the perfect moment. Benny. Lily waved weakly, though she was still pale and clearly exhausted. I didn't make cookies today, but Papa promised we'll bake together this weekend when I feel better. Alton looked at me from across the floor. His eyes held a question, hope and fear all at once. I nodded. Subtle, but clear. A silent answer to his unspoken question. A small relieved smile crossed his lips, genuine and reaching his eyes. And in that moment, surrounded by construction noise and dust clouds, something between us solidified, acknowledged, real, terrifying, yet inevitable. The rest of that day felt different. Every interaction carried new weight. When Alton came to discuss a blueprint discrepancy, we stood closer than necessary. When our fingers brushed reaching for the same document, we both froze momentarily before continuing as if nothing had happened. But everything had happened. By afternoon, when Lily was resting in a quiet corner with a blanket Alton had brought from home, he approached me while I was testing circuit breakers. Tonight, he said quietly, after Lily's asleep, could we video call? Actually talk about this. I looked at him at the vulnerability in his expression, the hope mixed with fear. Tonight, I confirmed. He nodded once, then walked away, but not before I caught the small smile on his face. Whatever this was between us, we were no longer pretending it didn't exist. And that changed everything. Why isn't this aligning properly? I stood in Alton's temporary office, officially because we'd discovered a serious discrepancy in the electrical plans that could delay the entire project. But truthfully, because Alton had specifically requested I meet him alone. Lily was at school and the office door was closed behind us. Look here. I pointed at the blueprint, deliberately keeping my focus on the technical issue. This wall already contains an outdated wiring system. The architect didn't account for it in the new plans. We'll need to completely remove the existing setup and install a new system from scratch, which will add both extra cost and time to the project timeline. Alton leaned across the table toward me. Very close. I could smell his cologne. Woodsy clean, unmistakably expensive. You really understand all of this. This isn't just basic electrical work you're doing. It's my job. I started as an apprentice, but I've learned extensively in the field over the years. No, Benny? He looked at me directly, his gaze intense. You have genuine talent. Did you receive formal training in architecture or design? I shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware we were veering away from work territory. I attended community college for 3 years. I was enrolled in an architecture program, but I couldn't afford to complete the course when my financial aid was cut, so I had to drop out and became an electrician's apprentice, because I needed income immediately. Alton's expression softened completely, something resembling sadness crossing his features. What were your dreams back then, before all of this happened? When you were still in college? I paused. Nobody had ever asked me this so seriously, as if they genuinely cared about the answer. I wanted to become an architect. To design buildings that would be meaningful, sustainable, beautiful, functional. I wanted people to live in my designs and feel genuinely happy in those spaces. You know, it's not too late for that. It is when you have monthly bills to pay, constantly rising rent, and absolutely no financial support system, I said with a bitter smile. Benny. He touched my arm across the table. Gentle. Deliberate. Electric. What if I sponsored you? For school? To complete your architecture degree? I froze completely. What? Alton. No. I'm not some charity case. I'm not offering this as charity, he said firmly. I'm offering this because you have authentic talent that's being wasted on work far beneath your potential. And I have selfish reasons as well. Selfish reasons? Because I want you in my life, he confessed, his voice lowering, properly, consistently, not just as someone who works on my projects for a few weeks and then disappears to the next job site. My breath caught. Alton, Lily is attached to you. Seriously attached. She talked about you constantly at the hospital that night when she had the fever. And I'm attached to you too. I don't know exactly when it happened, but it absolutely did. He stepped closer, moving around the table, and if you think this is too complicated or inappropriate or rushed, then I'll completely back off and we'll never have this conversation again. But first I need to know, are you feeling the same thing or am I alone in this? In that moment, I could have looked anywhere except into his eyes. Because if I looked, I'd have to admit a truth that terrified me. I'd spent my entire adult life alone, keeping my distance from relationships because I couldn't afford them emotionally or financially. Benny, please, look at me. I finally gathered the courage and met his gaze. Yes, I whispered. I feel it. It's terrifying and illogical and probably incredibly stupid, but, yes, I feel it too. Alton's hand came to my cheek. Slowly, trembling slightly, asking permission with every inch of movement. May I kiss you? Please? My heart gave one wild, painful beat. Yes, the kiss was gentle, tentative, soft, like we were both handling something fragile and precious that could easily shatter if we rushed. His lips were warm, slightly chapped, and when he pulled back after a few seconds we were both breathless. This is complicated, I said, my forehead resting against his. I know, Lily will need to adjust to this idea. And your company colleagues, your business partners, what will they think if— I don't care, Alton said firmly, his hands now on my shoulders. I only care about two things in this entire world. Lily and now you. Everything else is secondary. We'll live it out together. I looked into his eyes, sincere, vulnerable, hopeful, scared. Okay, I finally said, but we move slowly. For Lily's sake. At her pace. She's the priority. Absolutely agreed. We kissed again, this time more confident, less tentative, but still tender and careful. When I returned to the construction site that day to finish my work, everything looked physically the same but felt emotionally transformed. When my coworkers noticed I was smiling more than usual, they teased me relentlessly. I ignored them completely, because we weren't trying to hide anymore, at least not from ourselves. And when Lily asked the next day, Benny, would you come have dinner with Papa and me this weekend? We're making homemade pizza at our apartment. I knew this was just the beginning. Something real, something potentially lasting. Something worth fighting for despite all the complications. The rest of that week passed in a strange blur of anticipation and nervousness. At work I found myself checking my phone more frequently, smiling at Alton's brief text messages. Simple things like, Lily drew another picture of you today. Or she wants to know your favorite pizza toppings. Friday evening arrived faster than I expected. I stood outside Alton's apartment building, holding a bottle of wine I'd agonized over selecting, wondering if this was too formal or not formal enough. My finger hovered over the buzzer. You going to stand there all night? I looked up. Alton stood in the doorway, smiling. I saw you from the window. You've been out here for 3 minutes. I was just nervous. I know, I am too. He held the door open. Come inside. The apartment was warm and smelled like baking dough and tomato sauce. Lily appeared immediately, wearing a child-sized apron covered in flour. Benny, you came. Look, I'm making the pizza dough myself. Well, Papa is helping, but I'm doing the important parts. I can see that, I said, noticing flour in her hair and on her nose. You look very professional. Alton took my jacket. Welcome to our chaos. Fair warning, cooking with Lily is always an adventure. The evening unfolded naturally. We made pizza together, Lily insisting on putting way too many toppings on her personal small pizza. Alton and I worked side by side, our hands occasionally brushing, exchanging quick glances when Lily wasn't looking. During dinner, Lily dominated the conversation, telling elaborate stories about school and her friends. But occasionally I'd catch Alton watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, soft, contemplative, maybe a little amazed. After Lily went to bed exhausted from excitement, Alton and I sat on the couch with glasses of wine. Thank you, he said quietly, for being here, for being patient with all of this. I want to be here, I replied honestly. This feels right, even though it probably shouldn't. Nothing about my life has been conventional, Alton said. So why should this be any different? We sat in comfortable silence, and I realized something important. I wasn't just falling for Alton. I was falling for this entire small family, for the possibility of belonging somewhere after years of existing alone. Stay, Alton said suddenly. Tonight? Not like that. I mean stay on the couch. It's late, and I don't want you traveling across the city this late. Unless you're uncomfortable. I'll stay. I interrupted. He smiled. Relieved. Good. That night, lying on Alton's couch under a borrowed blanket, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how dramatically my life had shifted in just 2 weeks. And for the first time in years, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. Alton, this isn't sustainable. I stood in his apartment, my first time here as more than just Lily's friend, and we were arguing, voices raised but controlled because Lily was sleeping in the next room. This was 2 weeks into our official relationship, and it was our first serious conflict. What exactly isn't sustainable? Alton asked, frustration evident as he ran his hands through his hair. Us? Our relationship? Or are you expecting me to hide you completely from my professional life? No, but your business partner directly asked me today, who exactly are you in Alton's life? I hissed, trying to keep my voice down. And you told him what? Oh, he's just the electrician working on my project. Just. Like I'm some irrelevant person. Alton pressed his palms against his face, clearly struggling. I said that because I didn't want Richard making assumptions. He's extremely conservative with a traditional mindset. If he suspected, so you're ashamed? I asked directly. Of me? Of my profession? Of the fact that I'm not on your level financially or socially? Never. Alton grabbed my arm, desperate. Never, Benny. I want to protect you. And Lily. The corporate world is brutal and judgmental. If people start talking, there's a massive difference between protection and hiding. I said quietly, pulling my arm back, and what you did today felt exactly like hiding. We both fell silent, tension thick in the air between us. I love you, Alton said suddenly, his voice breaking. Those words, for the first time, my breath caught completely. I hadn't expected this. I love you, he repeated, stepping closer. And I never want to intentionally hide you or diminish what you mean to me. I made a mistake today. I panicked when Richard asked directly and I eyed it poorly. But Benny, I'm a father first, and I have a company with investors and board members who have certain expectations. I'm trying to balance everything and I'm clearly failing. I understand it's not easy, I said, softening slightly. But Alton, if we're going to make this work long term, you need to trust me completely. I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes our way. I do trust you. Completely. Then let me be a proper, acknowledged part of your life. Not someone you only see in private or downplay when uncomfortable questions arise. Alton looked into my eyes, determination and fear mixing in his expression. Okay, there's a company dinner at the end of this month. You'll come with me. Officially. As my partner, boyfriend, significant other, whatever label makes you comfortable, he said with a small smile. And I'll introduce you properly. No more hiding. I kissed him on the lips. Soft, reassuring, forgiving. I love you too, I whispered against his mouth. When I first saw you at that site, I was completely intimidated. Your presence, your confidence. I thought you were completely out of my league. But then I watched you interact with Lily, and I saw you as a real person, imperfect, struggling human, and your imperfections, your vulnerabilities make me love you even more. Alton pulled me into a tight embrace, his face buried in my shoulder. I was terrified that one mistake would make me lose you, that you'd realize this isn't worth it, that I'm not worth it. You are absolutely worth it, I said firmly. We're both in this, equally. We held each other for several minutes, letting the tension dissolve completely. But the next morning, when I arrived at the site, which was now almost complete, with only finishing touches remaining, Lily wasn't there. Alton wasn't there either. Where's Alton? I asked my supervisor casually, trying not to sound worried. Emergency. Apparently went to the hospital. The supervisor replied distractedly, checking his clipboard. My heart dropped painfully. No. Not again. Without thinking further, I abandoned work and ran to the hospital. My supervisor shouted something behind me, but I ignored it. After some hesitation, the receptionist gave me the ward number when I explained the situation. When I arrived, Alton was pacing in the corridor, phone clutched tightly in his hand. Alton. He spun toward me sharply. His eyes were red and puffy. He'd clearly been crying. Benny, you should be at work. What happened? Is Lily okay? Lily had a severe allergic reaction at school. Some classmates shared peanut butter cookies during snack time. The teacher didn't know about her allergy because... His voice cracked. Because I forgot to send the reminder note this morning. I was distracted talking to you on the phone and then I just forgot. Alton, stop. This isn't your fault. I'm a horrible father, he nearly shouted, then immediately looked around and lowered his voice. I got so involved in my relationship in us that I forgot my daughter's basic safety. No, absolutely not. I gripped his shoulders firmly. Alton, listen to me. Accidents happen. Teachers should know every student's allergies regardless. This isn't solely your responsibility. Is Lily okay right now? Yes. The doctors treated her in the emergency room. The school nurse used her EpiPen in time. But if she'd been even slightly delayed. Tears streamed down his face. But she wasn't. Lily is safe. She's fine. I pulled him into a tight hug, not caring that we were in a public hospital corridor. You're an amazing father. One mistake doesn't make you horrible. Alton hugged me back desperately, his body shaking slightly. I can't do this without you. That realization, it's terrifying. You can, I said. You're incredibly strong. But you don't have to do it alone, because I'm here. Always. I'm not going anywhere. When Lily was discharged a few hours later, she immediately saw me in the waiting room and gave a weak smile. Benny? Papa said, you came. I'm okay, I promise. I know, princess, I said, placing a gentle, careful kiss on her forehead. But you really scared me. Sorry, she said softly. Never apologize for being sick, I said. And I'm making you a promise I'll never leave you or your father. Okay? Promise? Promise. Alton looked at me from behind Lily. Grateful, loving, overwhelmed. And in that moment, in the hospital waiting room surrounded by strangers and harsh fluorescent lights, I realized something profound. This wasn't just Alton and me trying to figure out a relationship. This was the three of us. A unit, a family, slowly forming. And I was terrified, but I was also completely committed. We left the hospital together, Alton carrying a sleepy Lily while I held their belongings. In the parking lot, under the afternoon sun, Alton stopped and looked at me. Move in with us, he said suddenly. I froze. What? Not immediately. Not tomorrow. But soon. When you're ready. Because I want you there. Every morning. Every night. I want us to be a real family. My throat tightened with emotion. That's a huge step. I know. Think about it. No pressure. He shifted Lily in his arms. But I needed you to know I'm all in, Benny. Completely. I watched him buckle Lily into her car seat, his movements careful and practiced. And I realized I'd already made my decision. Yes. I said. He looked up, surprised. Yes? Yes, I'll move in. Not today, but soon. 'Cause I'm all in too. His smile was radiant, transforming his exhausted face completely. And despite the fear, despite the complications, despite everything, I knew this was right. Benny! Benny! Look what I made for the science fair. Lily held up her project proudly. An intricately detailed miniature house, complete with working LED lights I'd helped her install. And tiny solar panels. Alton had explained the functionality of during our evening sessions at the kitchen table. Did you design all of this yourself? I asked, genuinely impressed while examining the details closely. Yes. Well, Papa helped with the engineering parts, and you helped with the electrical components. She giggled. But the overall design and all the colors were completely my idea. My teacher said it's the best project in the entire class. Alton and I exchanged a meaningful glance across the living room. 6 months had passed and everything had fundamentally transformed slowly, carefully, but completely. The renovation project had been completed 2 months ago. Officially, I was no longer part of that particular job site. My company had assigned me to different locations throughout the city, but unofficially I'd become a permanent fixture in Alton and Lily's lives. I'd moved in 3 months ago. We had family dinners every night, movie nights on weekends, and helped with Lily's homework together like an actual parenting team. By the way, I'm officially starting architecture courses next month. I told Alton after Lily carefully carried her project to her room, ensuring nothing got damaged. I already knew, Alton said with a smile, pulling me close on the couch. I saw your admission letter when it arrived. I'm incredibly proud of you. This only became possible because of you. Financially, emotionally, no, he interrupted gently. This happened because of your hard work, your dedication. I merely provided resources. The talent was yours. The effort was yours. You earned this, Benny. He kissed me softly, the kiss lingering with unspoken affection. The doorbell suddenly rang. Lily ran excitedly toward the door. I'll get it. Be careful, princess. Alton called automatically. Grandma. Grandpa. Lily's delighted squeal echoed through the apartment. Alton's parents entered, their arms full of grocery bags and wearing genuine smiles. Initially, when Alton had formally introduced me as his boyfriend 4 months ago, the atmosphere had been awkward, his recently widowed son having a male partner that had required processing time, but gradually, deliberately they'd made efforts. And now, Benny. Dear Margaret, Alton's mother gave me a warm embrace. Did you prepare dinner or shall we all cook together? I've done the basic preparation, Mrs. Carter, but Lily wanted to make dessert with you. How many times must I remind you? Call me Margaret, she said affectionately, playfully tapping my arm. You're practically family now, Robert. Alton's father gave my shoulder a firm, approving pat. How's the project coming along? Alton mentioned your portfolio is becoming quite impressive. At the dinner table, with everyone gathered, Margaret and Robert, Lily, Alton, and myself, I took a moment to absorb everything. This normalcy, this belonging, this acceptance. I'd never imagined this for myself. Everything had happened so unexpectedly. A random construction site, a little girl with cookies and a lonely father doing his best. But it was absolutely perfect. Imperfectly perfect. Benny, Alton said suddenly, and everyone's attention immediately shifted toward him. He looked nervous, his hands trembling slightly. My heartbeat unconsciously accelerated. Yes? He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Oh my goodness, Margaret gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. Alton pushed his chair back and knelt directly in front of me, right there beside the dining table. Lily bounced excitedly in her seat, barely containing herself. Benny, when you first started working at my construction site, I assumed you were just a temporary presence, a worker who'd be there for a few weeks and then leave. But you've had such a profound impact on both Lily's life and mine that I cannot imagine a single day without you. You're not just my partner, you're my anchor, my home, my peace. Tears automatically filled my eyes. I know our relationship started unconventionally, Alton continued, his voice emotional yet steady. And I know we still face challenges, financial disparities, social perceptions, practical complications, but no challenge is worth wooing you over. So Benny, will you marry me? Will you officially become Lily's second parent and my life partner? Please say yes. Lily practically shouted, unable to contain herself any longer. Please, Benny, then you'll officially be my other dad. I looked into Alton's eyes through my blurry tears. Vulnerable, hopeful, loving, terrified. Yes, I whispered, my voice cracking with emotion. Yes, obviously yes. I'll marry you. Alton carefully slipped the ring onto my finger, a simple, elegant silver band, and then kissed me deeply, passionately, completely uncaring that his parents were present. When we finally separated, everyone was clapping and Eiley was literally jumping up and down. Lily hugged us both simultaneously, squeezing tightly. Best family ever. Absolutely the best. Margaret was discreetly wiping away tears. Robert smiled with unmistakable pride. Later that night, after everyone had left and Lily had finally fallen asleep from exhaustion, Alton and I stood on the balcony under the stars, wrapped together in a shared blanket. You know, I said, my head resting comfortably on his chest, when I first saw you, I was genuinely intimidated. Your entire presence, confidence, successful, completely put together, I felt entirely out of place. And now? Now you're just, you, imperfect, sometimes struggling, beautifully human. And you're home. Alton held me tighter. I never thought I could love someone again after Sarah. Losing her was devastating beyond words. But you showed me that hearts can actually expand, that there's room for new weave without erasing the old. Sarah will always remain an important part of your and Lily's lives, I said softly. I'd never try to replace that. I just want to write a different chapter with you. And that's exactly why I love you so deeply. We watched the stars in comfortable silence, peaceful, content, complete. This journey had started unexpectedly, at a construction site, with cookies, with a grieving widower and his brave little daughter. It hadn't been smooth. There had been challenges, doubts, fears at every turn. But ultimately, we were here, together, committed, building something permanent and real. And when Lily seriously announced at breakfast the next morning that she was already planning our wedding, purple and silver will be the colors and I'll obviously be the flower girl, and the cake has to be chocolate because Benny loves chocolate. Alton and I simply laughed and let her enthusiastically plan away, because this was our life. Beautifully chaotic, perfectly imperfect and absolutely right for us. I'll always love you, Alton said quietly, kissing my hand. And I'll always love you and Lily, I replied, meaning every single syllable. Lily cheered triumphantly, her mouth full of pancakes. Best family that exists anywhere, and that was the absolute truth. We were the best, not perfect but real, committed, genuinely loving, and we'd remain together, always.